Okay, let's further look into cross multiplication. So let's take a look at x over 6 equals 4 over 3. So I have a 6 on the bottom. So if you just want to times those sides by 6, you can simply solve it way simpler. But I just want to show you a different method that is very useful called cross multiplication. So we've briefly taken a look, and I've thrown that word out a little bit on the right-hand side with some of the short forms. So let's do that right now. I have a 6 on the bottom. I'm going to times those sides by 6, simply crossing off the 6 and saying times 6 where it belongs. I have a 3 on the bottom. I'm simply going to times those sides by 3 and cross off the 3 and put it where it belongs. Now keep in mind, I could just do 4 times 6 is 24 divided by 3 is 8. I know the answer is 8 anyway, but I just want to show you these methods cross multiplication. So crossing off the 3 and putting it where it belongs, where it could belong. On the left-hand side, we have 3 times x, which is 3x. On the right-hand side, we have 4 times 6, and 4 times 6 is 24. Now I have a number in front of the variable 3. 3 times x, I want to do the opposite operation, so I want to divide both sides by the coefficient of the variable. On the left-hand side, I have 3 over 3, which is 1. Therefore, x equals 8. So this is cross multiplication. But, check your answer. So we have x over 6 equals 4 over 3. Carefully taking our x value of 8, substituting it back in for x with brackets. And 8 divided by 3 simplified is 4 over 3. Therefore, 4 over 3 equals 4 over 3, check mark. So, cross multiplication. So, now let's take a look at that with letters. So, let's take a over b equals c over d. Well, we have a b on the bottom of the left. Cross it off and put it beside the c. Simply timesing both sides by b. Instead of writing on the left and then crossing it off, just putting it where it belongs. Now I could times both sides by d, but I don't have to. And that's the key. So I could times both sides by d and put it where it belongs. Or I'm going to rewrite the question. A over b equals c over d. Just cross off the b and put it where it belongs, where it could belong. So now let's take a look at equal fractions from elementary school and earlier, algebra and cross multiplication all at the same time. So let's take x over 2 equals 4. Again, x over 2 equals 4. And again, x over 2 equals 4. So in the example, the first example on the left, the 4 is over 1. And if I want to get equal fractions, it means I have to get the same number on both sides on the denominator. And that number is 2. And I timesed the 1 by 2, so I'm going to say times 2. And if I times the bottom by 2, I have to times the top by 2. On the top, I have 8. On the left-hand side, I have x on the top. I can clearly see that if I multiply both sides by 2, or just cross off the 2's on the bottom, x equals 8. So that's equivalent fractions, getting the same denominator. Algebra, I'm going to spread these out a tad, excuse me. Algebra, the 2 on the bottom, I'm just going to times those sides by 2. On the left-hand side, I have 2 over 2, which is 1. I can cross it off. X equals 8. That was shorter. Don't have to do as many steps. But they're the same. Now the example off to the right, if I do cross multiplication, I can simply just cross off the 2 on the bottom left and say times 2 on the top right and say x equals 8. Either way, the answer is correct every single time. Let's check that answer. X over 2 equals 4. Substituting 8 back in for x, we get 4 equals 4. Check mark, check mark, check mark. Really helpful to understand how to do stuff in different ways. They're all very simple. Equivalent fractions, times in both sides, and cross multiplication. So now let's look at some combination methods where we have something plus something equals something, and then something times something plus or minus something equals something, and then further examples.